You ever think you've got your life together, and then one day your entire world flips upside down? Yeah, that was me the day I found out my 12-year-old daughter was smoking weed right under my own roof. It sounds unreal, doesn't it? I mean, she's just a kid. My little girl. The one who used to sleep with her stuffed bunny and asked me to read bedtime stories. And now, she's hiding joints in her backpack? Let me take you back to the moment I found out. It was a normal Thursday, or at least, it started that way. I came home from work, tired, hungry, ready to just collapse on the couch. But something smelled off. Not the usual teen room funk, that mix of sweat and body spray. No, this was different. Sweet, smoky, earthy. And immediately, I froze. I followed the smell down the hallway, right to her door. And there it was, that faint haze in the air, like fog after rain. My stomach dropped. I knocked. No answer. I opened the door, and there she was, sitting by the window, with a lighter in one hand and a half-burned joint in the other. I swear my heart just stopped. All I could say was, "Are you kidding me?" She jumped, dropped it, tried to hide it, mumbling something like, "It's not what you think." But it was exactly what I thought. I just stood there, staring at her. My 12-year-old, smoking weed, in my house. And honestly, I didn't even know whether to scream, cry, or laugh. Because part of me thought, how the hell did we get here? I sat her down. My voice was shaking, and I tried so hard not to lose it. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you even do that?" She wouldn't meet my eyes, just stared at the floor and muttered, "Everyone does it." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Everyone does it. Since when did everyone mean 12-year-olds? I tried to breathe, tried to sound calm. "Where did you even get it?" She shrugged. "From school." I swear, in that moment, I felt like the worst parent alive. I'd always thought I was involved. I checked her homework, packed her lunch, made her favorite spaghetti on Fridays. How could I have missed this? Then I noticed her hands were trembling a little. She wasn't high. She was scared. And that's when I realized maybe this wasn't just about weed. Maybe something deeper was going on. I sat beside her and said quietly, "You can tell me the truth. I'm not going to yell." She hesitated, looked up at me with these red, tear-filled eyes and whispered, "I just wanted to feel normal." That broke me, because I had no idea she didn't. When she said, "I just wanted to feel normal," I didn't even know what that meant. So I asked her, "Normal compared to what?" She hesitated for a long time. Then she said, "Everyone at school talks about it. They say it helps them chill, helps them forget stuff. I just wanted to see what it's like." You ever have one of those moments when your brain just kind of stops working? That was me, because I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she didn't need that to forget stuff or to fit in. But then I realized maybe I never even asked what she was trying to forget. I've been so focused on keeping the house clean, paying bills, keeping her grades up, that I never noticed she was struggling. So I asked, "What do you mean forget stuff?" And she just said softly, "Sometimes I feel invisible. Like no one really cares what I think. At school, at home, I don't know. I just wanted to feel something." That hit me like a truck. Because how many times had I brushed her off when she wanted to talk? Just because I was tired. How many not nows had I said? I reached out, held her hand, and said, "Hey, I care. More than you'll ever know." But she didn't look convinced. She just whispered, "You're only saying that because you found out." And maybe she was right. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying everything in my head. The smell, her face, that sentence. I just wanted to feel normal. Was it my fault? Did I fail as a parent? You know how people online love to judge. If your kid does drugs, you weren't strict enough, or you should have been more involved. But honestly, it's never that simple. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I sat on the porch with my coffee, staring at the sunrise, just thinking, how do you parent a kid who's growing up in a world that's nothing like the one you grew up in? When I was 12, the worst thing we did was sneak out to buy chips after dark. Now kids are exposed to everything. Online challenges, vape pens, weed memes, and they think it's all normal. I decided to talk to her again, not as a parent laying down punishment, but as someone who just wants to understand. So I went to her room, knocked on the door, and said, "Can we start over? No yelling, no judging, just talk." She nodded, slowly, and that conversation changed everything. I sat down on the edge of her bed. She was still wrapped in her blanket, eyes half open, hair all messy. She looked like a little kid again for a second. And for a moment, I thought, this is still my baby. I said, okay, no lectures. Just tell me what's going on. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, you won't get it. And maybe she was right. I didn't grow up with TikTok group chats or friends vaping in the bathroom. But I told her, try me. She sighed and said, it's just everyone smokes, even the nice kids. And they make fun of people who don't. I didn't even like it that much, but it made me feel like I belonged. That word again, belonged. It's crazy, isn't it? Kids want to belong so badly they'll do things they don't even enjoy, just to feel accepted. And honestly, adults aren't that different. I asked her, did you feel better after? She shook her head. Not really. Just guilty. And scared you'd find out. My heart ached. I didn't even know what to say, so I just hugged her. She tensed up at first, then melted into me. And I realized she wasn't a bad kid. She was just a kid who needed connection. After that, I said, okay, we'll figure this out together. No more hiding, deal? She nodded. And for the first time in a long while, I saw relief on her face. Later that day, I did what every modern parent does when they have no clue what to do. I Googled it. 12-year-old smoking weed. What to do? And let me tell you, that was a dark rabbit hole. Half the post said, punish her immediately. And the other half said, be chill. It's just a phase. Great. Super helpful. I watched a few videos from parenting channels, but they all felt so fake. Like those perfect moms who smile while baking cookies and saying, just communicate, as if that solves everything. Meanwhile, I was sitting there wondering if I'd already messed up beyond repair. So I decided to do something old-fashioned. I called my own mom. She listened quietly as I poured everything out. Then she said, you know, when you were 12, I found out you skipped school for a week. I didn't yell, remember? I did remember. She didn't yell. She just made me talk. And that conversation changed me. Maybe this was my chance to do the same for my daughter. That evening, I called for a little family meeting. Just me, my daughter, and her older brother, Josh, who's 16. He came into the living room, rolling his eyes like he always does when I say the word meeting. Is this about dinner or did someone die? He asked. Neither, I said. It's about your sister. She glared at me. Seriously, Mom? You told him. I said, he's your brother. He deserves to know what's happening. Josh leaned back on the couch, trying to look all chill, but I could see the shock when I said she was smoking weed. He stared at her and went, what the hell? You're 12. Don't start, she snapped back. You vape at parties. And that's when the room went completely silent. I looked at him. You what? He froze. Sometimes. Not often. I just bury my face in my hands. Oh, great. Both of my kids. Then I laughed, because if I didn't laugh, I was going to cry. It turned into this awkward, real, unfiltered conversation where we all admitted things we'd been hiding. And strangely, it brought us closer. I said, look, I'm not here to play the bad cop, but you guys have to understand what this stuff does to you, especially when your brains are still developing. They both nodded, awkward but sincere. And for the first time, it felt like we were on the same team. Later that night, after Josh went to his room, my daughter came to sit beside me on the couch. She said quietly, you're not mad anymore? I looked at her. I'm still upset, but I'm not mad at you. I'm scared for you. She nodded slowly, twisting her bracelet around her wrist. I didn't think it was a big deal. Everyone online says it's safe. They even make jokes about it. That made me realize something huge. She didn't learn this from her friends. She learned it from the internet. And the internet doesn't care about your kid's future. So we talked, not just about drugs, but about why people use them. To escape, to fit in, to feel something. I told her, if you ever feel like you need to escape, talk to me. I promise I'll listen, even if it's hard. She looked up and said, even if it's about stuff you don't want to hear. I smiled, especially that stuff. And for the first time, she smiled too. Over the next few days, the atmosphere at home started to shift. We weren't walking on eggshells anymore. We were talking. Simple stuff at first. Dinner chats, small jokes, sharing music. But it felt different, lighter. One night, she came to my room and said, Mom, I threw away the rest of it. At first, I didn't even understand. The rest of what? She said, the weed. I don't want it anymore. I didn't hug her immediately. I just looked at her. Because I wanted to make sure she wasn't just saying it to make me happy. Then she added, I still feel weird sometimes, like I don't fit in, but I don't want to fix it that way. That's when I finally pulled her into a hug. You know what's crazy? Trust doesn't come back all at once. It's like rebuilding a house brick by brick, and sometimes you drop one. But that night, we placed the first real brick back in place. I told her, I'm proud of you. Not because you threw it away, but because you chose to. She smiled and said, thanks, can I still go to the sleepover on Friday? I laughed. Nice try. We'll talk about that later. Here's what I realized through all this. Parenting today is a minefield. When I was a kid, you had to go out of your way to find trouble. Now, it's in your kid's phone, their group chats, their For You page. I mean, you can block apps, install parental controls, but honestly, they'll always be one step ahead. They're growing up in a world that moves faster than we can even process. So the only real defense isn't control, it's connection. I started spending more time with her, just being around without pushing. We'd cook together, watch Netflix, talk about random stuff. Sometimes I'd sneak in a question or two like, so what do kids at your school even think about weed? She'd roll her eyes and say, Mom, you're such a boomer. And I'd laugh, because if she's teasing me, it means she's comfortable again. And maybe that's the whole point. Not to be perfect, but to be present. Just when I thought things were finally calming down, I got that call. You know the one. The kind where your heart sinks before you even hear the full sentence. Mrs. Carter, the voice said, we need to talk about your daughter. Instant panic. What happened? She was caught talking about drugs in class. The teacher said, we're not saying she had any, but it caused concern. My stomach turned. All I could think was, please, not again. When she got home, I was ready to explode, but I stopped myself. Instead, I said, want to tell me what happened? She shrugged, embarrassed. I was just telling someone not to do it. The teacher overheard the word weed and freaked out. And for once, I believed her. She didn't sound offensive or scared. She sounded annoyed. I called the teacher back, explained the situation, and after a short talk, they actually apologized. Later, I looked at my daughter and said, you handled that well. She smiled faintly. Guess I'm learning. And in that moment, I realized she was changing, not because I punished her, but because she felt safe enough to make better choices on her own. A week later, we were driving home from the store when she suddenly asked, Mom, did you ever do something bad when you were my age? I almost laughed out loud. Define bad. You know, she said, like breaking rules. I thought about lying, pretending I was this perfect, rule-following angel. But what would that teach her? So I said, yeah. I skipped school a few times. Lied to Grandma about it. Felt terrible afterward. She turned to me with this surprised look. You? Yeah. I was a kid once too, believe it or not. She laughed, and then, for the first time, she opened up about her fears. About being judged. About trying to fit in. About not wanting to disappoint me. That conversation lasted the entire car ride, and honestly, it was the most real talk we'd ever had. Sometimes, kids don't need a lecture. They just need to know you've been there too. After everything that happened, I decided it might help for her to talk to someone besides me, someone neutral. So I booked an appointment with a child therapist. At first, she was totally against it. She said, Mom, I'm not crazy. And I said, therapy isn't for crazy people. It's for people who need help sorting out their thoughts. That includes both of us sometimes. So she agreed to go, reluctantly. When we got there, I waited in the lobby, scrolling through my phone but not reading a single thing. My heart was racing the whole time. After 40 minutes, the door opened. She walked out smiling. In the car I asked, so how was it? She said, it was actually okay. She didn't lecture me. She just listened. Like really listened. I felt my shoulders drop for the first time in weeks. Then she said, can I go again next week? And I just thought, yes. This is progress. You know, as parents, we sometimes think we have to be the hero, the fixer, the problem solver. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you can't do it alone. That night, after dinner, she asked me something I didn't expect. She said, Mom, why were you so calm when you found out? I thought you'd scream. I laughed softly. Oh, I wanted to. Believe me. But I knew yelling wouldn't fix it. She nodded thoughtfully. It was weird. I thought you'd stop talking to me. And that hit me hard. Because maybe that's what she was really afraid of all along. Losing me. So I said, no matter what you do, I'll never stop talking to you. I might get angry. I might get disappointed. But I'll always be here. She looked at me and whispered, "Even if I mess up again?" I smiled, especially then. You could see the relief wash over her, like she finally believed it. And honestly, I realized something too. This whole situation wasn't a story about weed. It was a story about connection. And I wasn't just rebuilding my daughter's trust. I was rebuilding mine too. A few weeks later, she came into the kitchen while I was washing dishes and said, "Mom, can I show you something?" She handed me a small notebook, one of those cheap spiral ones from school. On the cover, she'd written my brain dump. Inside were short notes, scribbles, doodles, raw, unfiltered thoughts. Things like, "I hate pretending to be okay," or "I wish people liked me for who I am," and even, "Sometimes I feel empty for no reason." My heart twisted reading those words. I looked up at her and asked, "You okay with me reading this?" She nodded. "Yeah, I just wanted you to know what's in my head. I don't want to hide anymore." That hit me hard, because a few months ago, she was hiding, and now she was opening up completely. I said, "This is actually really brave." She smiled. "It helps. The therapist said, writing stuff down makes your brain lighter." I laughed. "Well, maybe I should start my own brain dump too." She grinned. "You'd probably fill a whole library." We both cracked up, and for once, the laughter didn't feel forced. It felt real. Her 13th birthday rolled around soon after. And I'll be honest, it hit me differently this time. We didn't throw a huge party or anything. Just a small dinner, a cake, a few close friends. But the moment she blew out the candles, she looked at me with this expression, calm, mature, a little shy, and said, "Thanks for not giving up on me." I almost cried right there. I said, "You gave me plenty of reasons to believe in you. You just forgot for a bit." She laughed, and then hugged me in front of everyone, which, if you have a teenager, is basically a miracle. After the party, when everyone left, I sat on the couch, scrolling through old photos, the ones where she was 5, holding her stuffed bunny, missing her 2 front teeth. And I thought, we made it through something that could have broken us. It didn't make me a perfect parent, but it made me a present one. And that's worth more than perfect any day. A few months later, her school held an assembly about substance use and mental health. She didn't tell me much about it beforehand, just rolled her eyes and said, "It's going to be boring." But when I picked her up that afternoon, she got into the car buzzing with energy. "Mom," she said, "they talked about everything, vaping, weed, anxiety. And guess what? I actually spoke up. I almost slammed the brakes." "You spoke? Like in front of people?" "Yeah," she said, grinning. "I told them that sometimes it's not about being cool. It's about wanting to feel something, and that adults should listen more." I just stared at her, this confident, thoughtful version of my kid who used to hide in her room. I said, "You might have just helped someone." She shrugged. "Maybe," but it felt good to say it. That night, I got an email from her teacher, saying she was proud of how mature and honest my daughter was during the discussion. And I'll admit it, I cried, because I realized she wasn't just growing up. She was growing through something. It's strange how fast life shifts. One day, you're standing in a smoky bedroom, thinking your world just collapsed. And months later, you're driving home from school with the windows down, laughing about how bad your kid's playlist is. Sometimes I still get flashes of that day. The smell, the shock, the
Пам'ятаю
heartbreak.
той день,
But
ніби це
now it
було
doesn't sting the
вчора.
same way. Because I
Дощ
know what
падав
came
так
after.
само сильно, коли мені
Honesty,
сказали, що
healing,
його більше
growth.
немає.
And if I'm being
Я
honest,
не нашли
she
його
taught me
вчора
just as much as I
зацінили
taught
по
her.
лісу,
She
маска
taught
твоя
me that
п'ють.
connection beats control. That
Розчуло без тебе
listening is
ні
more
одної, я
powerful than lecturing.
пам'ятаю той
And
день,
that
ніби це було
kids, no
вчора.
matter how old, still just
Дощ
want to
падав
feel
так само
loved,
сильно, коли
seen,
мені
and
сказали, що
safe.
його більше
I'm not
немає.
naive. I
Я
know
не
there'll be more
нашли його
challenges
вчора
ahead. But
зацінили по
now I don't
лісу,
fear them,
маска твоя
because we've
п'ють.
learned how to face them together.
Розчуло без тебе
If there's
ні
one
одної,
thing I've
я
learned through this whole
пам'ятаю той
journey,
день, ніби це
it's
було
that no
вчора.
parent is ever really
Дощ
ready.
падав так
You can
само
read all the
сильно, коли мені
books,
сказали, що
follow
його
all the
більше
parenting
немає.
blogs, watch
Я
every
не нашли
expert
його вчора
video,
зацінили
but
по
nothing
лісу,
prepares you
маска
for your
твоя
kid's
п'ють.
story. And maybe that's the point.
Розчуло без тебе
Parenting
ні
isn't
одної,
about following a manual.
пам'ятаю той
It's
день,
about
ніби
learning
це
your
було
child as they
вчора.
grow, over and over
Дощ
again.
падав так
If you're
само
listening to
сильно,
this
коли
right
мені
now,
сказали,
and
що
you're in
його
that
більше
place, the
немає.
fear, the
Я
guilt,
не
the
нашли його
confusion,
вчора зацінили
I
по
get it.
лісу,
I've
маска
been
твоя
there.
п'ють.
You might feel like you failed, or that your
Розчуло без
kid's
тебе ні
slipping
одної,
away. But I promise you, it's not too late. Not if you stay open. Not if you listen. Because the moment you choose connection over control, that's when the healing starts. Even if they roll their eyes, Even if they shut you out, keep showing up, keep talking, keep loving. It might not change overnight, but it will change. And one day, they'll look at you like my daughter did, and you'll realize it was all worth it. So yeah, that's my story. The day I found out my 12-year-old daughter was smoking weed turned out to be the start of something I never expected. The start of us actually understanding each other. If you've watched all the way to the end, first of all, thank you. Seriously, it means a lot. If this story hit home, or reminded you of something in your own life, drop a comment below. Tell me your story, or even just say I get it. You'd be surprised how many people are going through the same thing in silence. And if you're new here, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, because I share real stories like this every week. Stories about family, growth, and the moments that change us. Remember, being a parent doesn't mean being perfect. It means showing up, even when it's messy. Thanks for listening.